Going back to some of my musings about levels of characters and amounts of treasure and the levels of the monsters and their various hit point and experience point values and all sorts of variables concerned with these things. It's really become clear to me over the sessions that we've been playing how different it is to consider in the moment play. Just we're going to take everybody at their current levels. We're going to take the creatures and the characters and the maps and the various actionable entities of play at that time and say, what is play like then? Never mind improving in your hit points, never mind getting up a level or something like that. Just what is it for now? Let's assume that none of that is going to happen any moment directly. What's play like? How do we play? What are the dynamics of play? What can happen? What can't happen? What might happen? What will unexpectedly happen when somebody does a thing? All sorts of considerations of ordinary play and its experience. I lose focus on that. I lose focus on it because so much of the way that the game is presented and the way that it's been kind of culturally baked into me is focused on a much broader scale. Now, I love change. I mean, for me, role-playing design is immensely in the experience. It's tremendously affected by the change in characters and things. You may call that advancement or improvement, but I consider those two things to be very much a subset of the more general aspects of how things change. And for me, that's huge. How quantified it is or how quick it is or anything like that. All the variables involved. I've played across all those variables and I love them all. So to detach from that, for me, is very important for Dungeons and Dragons, this edition, Advanced D&D, first version, because of effectively the obsession with that at a very broad scale, very long period of time, and a presumed immense amount of encounters and, confrontations. So I can just give you one example out of hundreds. We can take a look at the improvement in 2-hit values by character class. So fighters, go up every 2 levels, and there's even an option where you can even split it further, and just every single level, they just go up +1. The other various character classes go up in, higher increments of levels. And then you can cross-reference that to the number of experience points necessary in order to go up a level at all and how those differ by character classes. Then you can factor in aspects of race such that as far as those 2 hits things go, half-elves and elves get +1 for short swords, long swords, and bows, hands-drawn bows. Okay, so you see all these things are factoring in, but what are they factoring into? They're factoring into a bunch of characters going up levels, in a not just one first to second, but thinking across levels of change. Some of the character classes go up in that 2-hit by every 3 levels and some by every 4 levels. So really to get a sense of this as being a dynamic and comparative and some feature of play, we would have to be thinking of these characters going from 1st through 9th level. Okay, that's a big bunch of purported play because it's a big thing. We're not going to just say, oh, well, I just did that, the other day, so now let's think about it. We have to recognize that this level, this range of attention across the system is actually a bit of a distraction and can become an obsession, especially in light of all those other variables about the creatures and their experience points. And perhaps you're thinking to yourself, well, I wouldn't want, these two characters to be going up in a lot of levels while these other two characters aren't. Well, if we're going to suddenly have this magic item come in, this dude will have that magic item and the others won't, because of the class or the fact that one person gets the item in the first place. And the experience points for the item would be spread across the group if they all participated in acquiring it. But wait, but then, there was that naturalistic thing we were playing where that guy couldn't be there because he was busy working on that other thing for 3 weeks. So he's not going to get those. Well, what am I going to do about that? How am I going to, bring him up when he comes back into play? So all of a sudden, these priorities that are sort of soft priorities, the notion that everybody should be at least able to be gaining experience points at, the same rates, is distracting. Or the notion that, well, the next magic item that comes in, well, I could just, roll for it on the monster table like I have been doing. I mean, that's how that guy got that thing. But wait, that other character who has no magic items, maybe I better just pick one up and slot one in for them. Now, there's nothing terribly wrong in that logic in isolation. If one says, ooh, that item, that seems great for our game, and part of our game means that player character is in it, I can't fault that. But the idea that we're looking across all the characters and thinking across these level up processes, and we're thinking about what they can do and what they should get. Other weird factors come in that are implied strongly in the more negative text in the DM guide about who deserves, well, first of all, who deserves to live. There's plenty of language in there about how, if you play stupid or something like that, well, then let the dice fall where they may. But if they don't play stupid and they fail the saving throw and are going to croak on you, then, hey, cut them some slack, give them a scar or whatever it is. So there's all this business about managing the very experience of having your character die or not, which goes very nicely with this business of managing the level and the experience points and the thinking about all the variables that shift differently for different characters across those, for example, 9 levels of change. All of this is a terrible distraction in a lot of ways when it shifts from being a feature, a systemic feature that applies when it applies, versus something to manage, something to Uber GM across it all, and to have that be the first priority of what you would like to be playing next. What is the logic of setting up, materials to play for Advanced Dungeons and Dragons First Edition? If you try to soak it up across the text, it's very much about managing the player experience, very much about seeing whether they, play smart, or seeing whether they accord with and embrace aspects of the fantastic that are present, and admittedly present. The game is quite charming and quirky in 10,000 different ways and details in content. So is it, however, my job as the dungeon master to make sure of all of this content is adjusted, managed, and programmed effectively for whatever dynamic it is I want to see across the level after level after level of improvement? Or whether I should just be looking at what lays about, imaginatively speaking, and say, well, what are my dudes going to do? And what other dudes, creatures, histories, items, or whatever, given what I have, and expanding it out a little bit or digging a little deeper, depending on how you want to look at it, is also going to be scattered about. And just playing it from there. And then do we just go completely naturalistically and not concern ourselves with who gets which experience points and for what and all the rest of it? And then you see it's hard for me to detach from that when it comes to Dungeons and Dragons. That's part of my little weird essentialized knot of what it, quote, it really is. So right now I'm going to back off from that.